Before we begin, we want to take a moment to acknowledge the serious nature of the topics discussed in this episode. This podcast covers subjects including suicide, trauma, and substance abuse. These conversations are intended to promote healing, understanding, and awareness, but we recognize they may be difficult to hear. If at any point you feel overwhelmed, please know it is okay to pause, step away, and take care of yourself. Your well-being comes first. If you or someone you know is in crisis, please reach out for help. You can call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can also text HOME to 741741 to connect with the crisis text line. You don't have to face this alone. Help is available. With that being said, welcome to episode 2, brought to you by Spark.
Welcome. This is our second episode for the Hope, Help, and Healing podcast. My name is Dennis, and with me today is Michelle, and our guest is James. We've been planning this for a while, and the day of recording, we run into technical difficulties, so we'll just have to picture James. So, Michelle, I will let you get us started.
Yeah, I met James about 6 months ago in September of last year. He was one of our guest speakers at our Hope, Help, and Healing conference last September. His story was so powerful and heartfelt that I was like, we have to have him come on here so he can tell a story and more people can hear it. It was very heartfelt and it touched me, and I know it's going to touch other people. I'm really looking forward to being able to talk with him again today. James, I know that when you first started, you actually started out in law enforcement. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey into law enforcement, how that came about?
I was 28 at the time, and I was working as a truck driver and doing some logging. And what had happened was when it rains, you don't really work a lot. And so I got to thinking, how can I work a job where you don't get rained out, where you've always got a guaranteed paycheck? You can always go and find something to do. And then I thought on the aspect that I get to help people as well. So why not try and do something different? So I went through the police academy, and being 28 and everybody else was 21, 22, it was very humbling to get out there and do physical agility and the physical part of it and push-ups and running. And here I am 28 thinking I'm a young pup, and I really wasn't. But that's really how I got started. I just wanted something different, a new approach, a paycheck every week, not having to worry about whether I was going to get paid or not. And that's where it started. And I did
Yeah.
that in 2003.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And I know that you talked about your police work and how much you enjoyed doing it because you were working with people. What did you love about it at the very beginning?
Mainly the respect aspect. When you roll up on a scene, people love to have the officer there. When they look at the officer, they know peace is coming. They know answers are coming. They know they have security and stability. When the officer rolls up on the scene, all the chaos stops. You would have parents coming up to you saying, "Hey, my kid really needs a talking to," and can give them a little talk and tell them what's going to happen to them. And can you let them sit in their patrol car and let them know what that's going to feel like? Kid's scared to death, but he's 8 or 9 years old and he's terrified. But then he gets in the patrol car and he thinks it's all cool, all the lights and the sirens. And then you get a call to a 92-year-old blind woman's house, and all she needs to do is she's lost her remote. She can still hear, so she wants the TV on, but now she can't find the remote. So you get to help her find her remote. It's just simple things like that. You go to somebody's house and you realize that it's really a mental health issue because they're seeing aliens ride four-wheelers on their roof. And you come up with an idea of colored Windex and you give them that, tell them that's their alien repellent. And 30 days later, they call back, "We need some more repellent." You didn't really fix them, but you helped the situation. And those kind of memories are what I really enjoyed about law enforcement.
Yeah. In law enforcement, there are a lot of stressors and experiences that begin to impact your mental health. Was there ever a time where you said, oh gosh, this is getting to be a little bit more than I had anticipated?
Every day. With the good times from working accident scenes where an 18-year-old is basically deceased, or you can tell they're going to be deceased shortly. from simple mistakes, maybe prom turned horrible. The two people that got into a fight that turned into somebody brought a gun or a knife. The abuse on children is really the worst. When you see a child be injured or hurt, and you can't just step in and do something, you have to go through the process, and you're hoping the process actually does what you want it to do. You arrest somebody and you take them to jail, and they beat you back to town because they've made bond and bail before you were even able to do the paperwork. Those things really stress you out. You're out here to make a difference, and the justice system worked against you. I'm not saying anything bad about the justice system. It works. But as an officer, you're out there doing your job. You're putting your life on the line, things like that. And it really gets to you. You see the 70-year-old man that tried to commit suicide, and he didn't put the gun in the right place. So the only thing he lost was his nose and his eyesight. Now he's got to live the rest of his life like that. And the first thing he says when you walk up is, I really just can't do anything right. That's stressful, not only as an officer, but as a person, when they feel that they had to take their life, but now they couldn't take their life and they feel even worse. Instead of looking at it as a blessing, and maybe God kept me from something. Maybe he kept me here because he has a purpose and he wants to turn me around, and I'm looking at the negative side of it. So you help the 92-year-old find her TV remote, but now you're here talking to this guy that just blew half of his face off, and he's still depressed. And now I have to go home to my wife and my children and deal with life stress there, but not take anything I just dealt with at work home with me. And that's, I think a lot of first responders and law enforcement deal with that.
Because I know that in the law enforcement culture, there's often a lot of pressure that you have to stay strong. You can't let them show that you're weak or that something's bothering you. Was there ever a time where that stay strong was just getting too much?
There's not really a certain instance. There's a bunch of memories that get to you. The worst is when you're on an accident scene. One does come to mind. The 18-year-old prom night. We get a call 2:00 in the morning. There's been an accident. I worked for a small county at the time that only had one officer on. So it was just me all by myself. 2:00 in the morning out in the middle of nowhere outside Groveton, really small community. I got to the wreck scene. The truck's on its side. This gentleman is hanging out of the passenger side window, non-responsive. He's a mile from his house. After we got the wreck scene cleaned up, this is 2:00 in the morning. So by the time I get to go to his parents' house, it's 7:30. And as an officer, if you're in a small department, you work the scene and you do the death notification. It's not, hey, call somebody else and have them do it for you. You're the one doing it. So I walk up and I knock on the door, and the dad answers the door, and then the mom comes shortly after. And I give them the news, and the mom's, no, he's in his bedroom. He came home right after prom. It was like 12:30. I heard his truck pull up in the yard, and I don't know what she heard at 12:30, but it wasn't him. And she argued with me about him being in his bedroom. And finally, the husband was like, let's just go check. So she runs to the bedroom and she comes back and she just falls on her face, not understanding what's going on. And I told the husband, I said, he was life flighted. I was like, honestly, probably didn't make it to the hospital, but I'm not a medical professional, so I can't. But they life flighted him and we got everything cleaned up. And just the look on their face. At 7 p.m., they saw their son go to prom. And now 12 hours later, they're planning his funeral. You have to keep a straight face. You have to be strong. And then you have to sit here and think, I have kids that are going to go off to prom. What am I going to do when that officer steps on my doorstep? And it's hard to stay strong, to keep the smile on your face, and to give those kind of notifications, knowing what those parents are going to go through. You think about it yourself and your own reality. You have to go home and put a smile on and greet the wife and the kids. And it was a struggle, a daily struggle.
Just being able to report something that is so horrible for a parent to have to experience. And then you have to go home and try to be normal and process that.
You have to find your own kind of normal. And that's what's weird about it. People think that you wear that uniform, you're law enforcement, you're a big bad guy, and then all you're doing, you're literally crying inside. You're probably the biggest baby out there because of what you have to deal with on a daily basis.
Absolutely. And then having to go back out there the next day and doing it all over again.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
12 hours later, you went to bed, you slept, you got up, you got dressed, and hey, brand new day, brand new issues. But forget about what you did yesterday.
So, looking back at your time as law enforcement, I know that there was a transition that started to take place where you started to struggle a little bit. Can you talk about that a little bit for us?
Are you referring to the story I gave at the church in September?
Yeah, yeah, that was a very empowering story and something I don't think a lot of people hear law enforcement's perspective of that.
During that struggle and during that time, I was going through a divorce. She moved about 5 hours away, so it was hard for me to see my son. I had another son from a previous marriage that I had custody of, so now I've got to figure out how to take care of him and do daily things with him because I had full custody at that time. And I worked with a sheriff's deputy that was an ordained minister, and we worked every Sunday, and that's why he didn't pastor a church because his work schedule just didn't allow it. He just couldn't get off. But he would always tell me, "Hey, pick a church. We're going to go." And I was like, "I don't want to do church. Church is really not for me." And he's like, "God's for everybody." And I was like, maybe he forgot about me on the list because I'm just not in that place. That's not something I want to do. But out of respect for him, we would pick a church every Sunday. We'd sit on the very back row in case we got called out. And it always seemed like when you're trying to do something good, he's always going to throw a wrinkle in the plan. There wasn't a single church service we went to that we didn't get called out from. He always made a way for us to get called away. We would sit there, we'd be there for 15, 20 minutes, get sent out. And the next Sunday, we'd pick another church and same thing. So I never really got the true impact of what this man wanted me to get because Satan was always throwing a wrinkle, and that's what Satan does. That's how he works. The problem I had or the struggle I had was this man's trying to get me to find Jesus. I'm not wanting to find Jesus. I've got my son here that I'm raising. I've got another son I can't see. I'm going through a divorce. On top of it, I'm in law enforcement, dealing with those daily struggles. There was a young man. He was 23 years old. He was in the drug world. He was dealing for the local crack people. He had a little girlfriend and they were living life or trying to. And he had a warrant. Basically, he did some damage to somebody's property and he had a criminal mischief warrant. Nothing big, nothing to really worry about. But on this particular day, he got pulled over and an officer walked up to the car and he jumped out with a gun. The officer retreated back. At this time, the rest of us were at home. It was a Sunday, so I was watching the football game and got called out on that Sunday afternoon and basically got given an address and said that he's taken a lady hostage. First time in my career, I had been in law enforcement for 4 years. I'm still pretty young, still pretty fresh and new, never been faced with something like that. I was working in a small town of about 4,000 people. We had the officers, we had 6, and then we also had the county that always had 5 or 6 on duty. There's about 10 or 12 of us that roll up to this scene. We surround this house, and Chief gets on the phone trying to negotiate with this guy. He's just, "I'm not coming out, not coming out. If you don't, we're coming in." You've seen the movies. But the only problem was he took a lady hostage she was in her 80s. She was widowed, so she's living all by herself. And I'm sure she was scared to death. This guy not knowing where he's going, what his direction is, and now he's got a gun. All these cops are outside my house. Now you're starting to get a gathering of people, which is always bad when you're dealing with guns. There's 12 of us with guns, and then he's got a gun. It was turning into a really bad situation. He does let her come out, and we get her to safety. And then he comes out waving around the gun and he's looking at all of us. He's looking at me. He's looking at the other crowd. I'm on the corner by the porch on his right side. There's another officer on his left side, and then the rest of the officers are in the front of him. And he's just standing there. We're just waiting for his response, trying to say, "Hey, man, get on the ground, drop the gun. Let's end this peacefully. Let's talk about this. You've got options. Don't ruin your life." And he pulled the gun up about chest level. And when he did, 3 of us fired. They don't tell us which one was the one that took his life. But talking about the stressors of things, big departments have officers and then they have crisis intervention. They have people to come out and take photographs. So after we take this guy's life, now it's time to take pictures and documentation. So they hand me the camera. One of the guys that pulled the trigger now has to document this in pictures, and his eyes were still open. And so I still have that image of this man's face with his eyes open. After all of that was done, we meet with the ranger. We do all the investigating part of it to make sure that it was a justified shooting, which it turned out to be justified. But then you ask, I'm really struggling with this. I'm having bad dreams. I'm dealing with depression. I'm having to deal with my own life. And now this has affected it. I've got his girlfriend leaving death threats in my mailbox about, you sure do have a good looking son. So now I'm worried about that. What had happened, and the truth to come out, was this man had taken the drugs and stole them and owed the dealer money. When he got pulled over, his life was just over, because either they're going to kill him in prison or they're going to kill him in county jail or somewhere. This guy's going to have a bad deal. Now he's got his girlfriend. And so we're living with all of that. And you simply ask, hey, is there somebody I can talk to? And you get told, you're an officer, deal with it. Okay. All right. I'm having trouble dealing with it. You signed up for this. This is your job. This is what you get paid to do. Suck it up, Buttercup. And so that's what you had to do. And here I am living without Jesus, living without church, don't have the support. I'm up there in that town by myself, no wife. It's just me and my boy. He's wanting to go fishing or go play soccer. And I'm sitting here going, oh my God, I just want to blow my brains out. So now I get into a point where how do I function? How do I do this? How do I be this guy's father and be an officer and deal with the fact that I just took a man's life? And so another day, I'm sitting at home. My son had went with his mom for the weekend, and I'm sitting there drinking and thinking about things and trying to work things out in my mind. And I say, you know what? My son deserves better. So if I just end this, then he'll get better. He'll go back to his mom or something will happen, but he'll get better. And so I'm sitting there, and the thought of that deputy come to my mind, and I was like, okay, God, if you exist, show yourself. Stop this. If you don't want this to happen, if you have a purpose for James McKenzie, you do something. And there was a knock on my door. And when I opened the door, there's another officer who says he just had a feeling that he needed to come check on me. All right, God, you got a sense of humor. Okay. Something exists. I called that deputy and we got to talking again. And I said, okay, I'm serious. Let's go to church every Sunday. When he started taking me to church from those Sundays on, we didn't get the first call. We were able to sit through the whole service without any issues. And I thought, okay, so now God is overpowering Satan. I'm now getting to listen to these sermons and the truth. And now it still didn't sink in with me. I still had a couple of years that I still did what James wanted to do. And I decided to move back home. I didn't want to live there anymore. So I moved back home. And that's when the lady I'm married to now, we started seeing each other and known each other our whole lives. Her dad was a Baptist pastor and church I went to my whole life. So we started going back there. I'm still having the dreams. The death threats had stopped because we moved, but I'm still having the dreams. I'm still seeing this guy's face. I'm still feeling really guilty, depressed, anxiety over it all the emotions you'll have when something traumatic happens like that. We got in church and I'm standing there one Sunday and the message was, why not tonight? Why are you still standing there holding on to a pew, holding on to a life that you don't need? Why not tonight? Why don't you just come down this aisle and accept Jesus Christ? Why not tonight? I walked down that aisle and I got saved and the dream stopped. The feelings of guilt went away. I got to thinking back. I stayed in law enforcement until 2018, but this was 2008 at this point. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking back. And you don't have to just deal with it. You don't have to just do it because that's your job. Law enforcement and first responders see so much and deal with so much. They need a support system. And here's this pastor telling me, why not tonight? Why not just come down and accept Jesus, and we'll help you in everything you need? If you'll just come down this aisle, if you'll just take one step, James, I'll meet you right there. And then 2 years later, I feel the tug and the call to do my own ministry. And now I'm the pastor of that church. And seeing people come down those aisles and give their life to Christ and get baptized, it's an amazing feeling that I was going to end because I was testing God. The only answer is Jesus Christ. That's the only way. But I don't think a lot of people focus on that when they're dealing with things. Maybe they're not Christians. Maybe they don't go to church. Maybe they don't know the truth. If we don't step up, these people die, or they stay living in depression, or they become violent. Too many times you hear officers abusing their wives and children because they just can't cope anymore. You've got them committing suicide because they just don't know how to deal with it, because somebody has said, it's your job. Deal with it. And they shouldn't have to.
So, how do you think that your past experiences with law enforcement have helped you connect with people differently now than before? Because I think that your story is powerful, and it gives such a great perspective of the law enforcement side, but also the pastor side of that. I think that your experiences have made you be a more passionate pastor and being able to connect with your congregation and being able to share your story. I can't wait for other people to be able to hear that. I know that Dennis and I have talked to quite a few, because we have lots of churches in our East Texas area. A lot of our pastors have told us they are having lots of people are coming to them for help, and they're struggling with how to interact with them. Do you have any words of encouragement for other pastors who might be listening, and how you could help them with others that might be struggling in that dark place?
I think what made me stronger as a pastor was that I came into ministry already seeing the worst parts of life, seeing where people struggle, seeing where people are hurting and dealing with things, going in and having the wife crying and the kids crying, or the guy running from us, and to see how when now you arrested him and now he's saying, you've ruined my life because of this. No, you ruined your life because of the choices you made. And that's what being a pastor, that's basically what it's about, is you're trying to convince people the choices they made are not working and it's time to do something different. But the basic pastor that has never dealt with, he hears stories talking about things, complaining, asking for different things, but to actually know what's going on a day-to-day basis, if they've never been in law enforcement or a first responder, then they've never experienced that. So a word of advice to pastors is slow down and listen more to what's being said. Have that officer or first responder explain in detail what they're dealing with. Not that there's just struggles at work. What helped me a lot with that deputy was that I was able to talk to him. We were able to talk things out. He was actually on that scene, so he knew the struggles. He was going through it too, but he already knew Jesus, so it didn't bother him as much as the one that didn't have Jesus and no avenues and no areas. So I guess going forward and talking to officers, first responders, anybody that kind of carries that guilt, that depression, that shame, is just really be a good listener. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in on that point. You mentioned earlier in your story that when you were wearing the uniform, you were told, hey, suck it up. This is what you signed up for. I'm curious, as a pastor, where is your support? Obviously, we know as Christians to lean on God, but I'm curious too, where does that support look like for a pastor who's struggling too, whether it's struggling with what his congregation are bringing or just his own struggles? What does that look like for pastors when they're struggling with things like that?
In my journey, pastors have their own, when they counsel with somebody and they're hearing the worst of the worst, they're having to give all this spiritual advice when they might be at home dealing with something as well. Pastors are not exempt. They're human just like everybody else. Just because stand up on a platform on Sunday morning doesn't make them gods. It makes them human, and they just have a job to do. I was mentored by a very good pastor, and he's still a friend of mine that I can call up at any time, text or whatever, and say, "Hey, how do you work this problem out? I've got this one coming to me with this. How in all of your years have you dealt with that?" I take off some Sundays, but I don't leave the church. I'll take off and I'll call in a visiting preacher. And then I get to sit on Sunday morning and feel the worship music and get into what the word is saying from a different perspective, a whole different point of view. It may have been a sermon I preached or scriptures that I've preached before, but I'm hearing a different side of it. Pastors get fed by other pastors. I believe every pastor out there probably had somebody that mentored them. I'm sure there's a lot of older pastors that whoever mentored them may not still be living. The one that mentored me, his pastor has already passed away. So his support now falls back on who he can call. Pastors can't just talk to anybody because a lot of times you're talking about issues in your church and you can't just tell anybody in your church what's going on. There's no issues in my church. There's no problems in my church. My church is perfect. When in reality, it's so far from perfect. There's very few people that pastors can talk to. So other pastors are really their only line of support. Pastors can get together and talk about how they deal with those issues and this problem at the church and this problem and over here and how did you deal with this and how did you keep your marriage strong at home when you're devoting more time to your church than your house. And then if you're bivocational, you have a full-time job on top of that. So now you have a full-time job, you have the church, and you have home. You have to have that avenue open where you reach out to other pastors. I hope they have that one pastor they can call, lean on, or say, "Hey, I'm struggling and need help." Dennis, you and I have talked before about getting some kind of circle going of churches where we have that support line, where we have pastors that, "Hey, call this guy up. You may not know him personally, but he's a pastor too." I think that's what we need. Mental health professionals, y'all have that lifeline. Y'all have different agencies in different counties and cities. Y'all can always call up for help. And I think pastors, first responders, they all need that as well.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I know that we've had quite a few. When I think of a pastor, from my perspective, you think of the pastor as being perfect. Their family is perfect. And looking back on it, that's so unfair. I know that a lot of the people that go to churches, they have all of this pressure that they put on their faith leaders because they're supposed to be perfect. And they forget that you're human and that humans, we all have choices and we make mistakes. And it doesn't mean that we're any less than another person. And I think that sometimes that pressure on our faith leaders is a lot for them to handle. And I think you're right. We do need to come together and get all of our faith leaders connected so that they have that support system within themselves, because you can't complain to anybody else.
No,
It
you
has to
can't.
be with another faith leader. Yeah,
Because like you
absolutely.
said, everybody has that image of the pastor being perfect, having the perfect life, and everything is just perfect. And he better have all the good answers. And when I ask him a question, he better know how to deal with that. And they don't see him as being just like them and being human. And so if you go to somebody in the church, let's say you even go to one of your deacons and you say, "Hey, I'm having this struggle and I'm doing this." Now the deacons look at you different. How can he tell me how to live life if he can't figure it out? And so, yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, it is. Gosh, I just love your story and love how you were able to get through all of that hard stuff. And that doesn't mean that there aren't still hard stuff for us all to deal with, because we deal with stuff
Right.
all the time. Hard stuff
Right.
comes to us. Leading on your faith and being able to know that God's there and he's protecting us and he's going to be with
Absolutely.
us even in the hard times is something that I love to share with other people. Thank you so much for that story. I know Dennis probably has some more questions for you.
Yeah, I wanted to come back to when you're wearing the uniform, you're seen as a leader, you're seen as someone as an authority. And of course, when you're standing on that platform on Sundays and Wednesdays, you're seen in the same light. But what Michelle and I have found, pastors see these things happening in their church, whether it be drugs, normal challenges of life, mental health challenges. And a lot of times don't know what to say outside of the faith response. And this is where people in the faith community get stuck, because I've heard people tell other people, you need more Jesus. And while that is a good recommendation for all of us, not having that understanding that when you're in that hole of depression or something's got a hold on you, you already feel separated from your friends, your family, and your God. They need Jesus, although great advice for all of us, is not usually going to be the best advice. So it kind
No.
of leaves you stuck. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to tell you. So I'm wondering how maybe you've dealt with that, or what challenges you've seen with that in the faith community.
When I started pastoring, I told myself that with all the churches I've been to, seen other pastors, hearing complaints, I wanted my church to be different. And not saying that it's perfect, not saying that we do things better than others, not saying that, but you would hear people say, I came to your church on Sunday, not a single person said anything to me.
Mhm.
So we have a thing in our church where we do a meet and greet. We do the first song, and then everybody gets up and shakes hands and greets and finds out who the new people are. My focus is being able to show support and love to everybody in that church. So if you walk in there with an issue or a problem, 80 people have just shaken your hand and got your name and made you feel welcome and made you feel like you belong. And I think back when I was in my depression and wanting to take my life, the one thing I really needed to feel, because the chief said, it's your job. The one thing I wanted to feel is accepted and how I belong. And I think just telling them, you just need Jesus. You know, I need Jesus, but explain that to me. Why do I need Jesus? What is having Jesus going to do for me? And the main thing that the Bible preaches more than anything is that Jesus is love. If we show more love, conquers all. So if we'll just show more love to people and quit looking at their outside and try to figure out what's going on the inside, I think we'll reach more people that way than just throwing a Bible scripture at them or saying, you just need Jesus. You just need to go to the altar. You just need to come to church. You can go to churches and sit there on pews and not get a single thing out of it, because church is a building. It's the people inside the church that make it count. And if you walk into a church and people aren't greeting you because you're new, or they don't like the way you're dressed, or you smell bad, or you look different, or they don't trust you when you walked in the door, if that's the kind of attitude you're getting, then they're leaving there still feeling alone, deserted, like they don't belong. So why not just take my life? Nobody wants me here anyway. And so we need to make people feel welcome, let them know that we love them and support them no matter where they're at in life, and talk to them. And instead of just saying you need Jesus, tell them who Jesus is.
And
Well,
show them.
yeah,
Show
that's
them
a
who
good point.
Jesus is. Yeah,
Exactly.
because I think that Dennis and I always talk about is the connection that you have to make with individuals, whether you know them or not. When you're struggling and you see somebody struggling, go over and talk to them.
Exactly.
You look like you're having a bad day. You want to talk about it. I'm here. I'm
Exactly.
listening.
One of the
Yeah.
things I've said in my sermons is you might be the only Bible somebody reads. They're looking at your life, your actions. If you see somebody struggling, stop and help them. Old lady with her groceries, help her walk her to the car. You'd be surprised what you'll learn about somebody if you'll just spend a minute with them. You know, you'll hear their struggles. She'll probably start complaining, and can I just pray with you for a minute? Instead of saying, hey, you know what, old lady, you need some Jesus. You can sit there and say, hey, can I pray with you for a moment? Can I just show you some love? And I think that would really make a big difference in a lot of people's lives if they just knew that people cared.
Amen to that. When we talk, Michelle and I, we always talk about, are you okay? Just checking on someone, echoing what both of you have said. Here we are, Jay, as we're talking about your story and seeing so many different sides of this discussion with law enforcement, the faith community. But let's look at this from a community level, because where Michelle and I come from, as far as where we are focused in our work here in East Texas, we work in some counties that are some of the highest numbers of suicide per capita. We believe that this is preventable, and some of that prevention is just being there with people. Are you okay?
Yes.
If you had advice, you could just magically wave that wand to fix community. How do we make our communities safer for everybody, especially around mental health and suicide?
I think churches need to be more involved, except on Wednesdays and Sundays. I think local pastors should be, if somebody calls on them, I think that they should be available to talk. I think law enforcement and first responders should have people that they can reach out to. The main thing is communication. We have to keep that communication key open. The main thing with community is if these people feel alone and they don't feel like they have a place to go, then they're not going to ever reach out. And that's why they commit suicide, because they don't feel like they have anybody to talk to. I know with y'all, they come to you, you give them someone to talk to, and the same way with Burke Center here in Lufkin, they always have somebody to talk to. I think churches as a whole need to reach out and support that and tell them why they need Jesus or why they need help. Now, there's some people that's going to take advantage of that, and I think that's why so many communities and churches give up on people, is because they've been taken advantage of, or they've helped somebody out that stabbed them in the back. But we need to remember that it's all about love and support. And we might have got burned with this one, but can we save this other one? And so I think communication is probably the most important. They need to reach out, but they need to have someone to reach out to.
All right. We probably continue this for a long while. There's so much to unpack here, but we want to be respectful because Jace probably has a message for tomorrow to give. So,
Working on it, actually. Yes.
James, we greatly appreciate your time, and somewhere down the road, we'd love to have you back.
We'll work on this camera issue. Yes.
All right. James, thank you for your time.
Yes. Thank y'all.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So, Michelle, that was a good message tonight. Any final thoughts from you?
I just really hope that this message comes across to our listeners that everybody struggles. There's always something that's going on, and, that there are people that will be able to help you. And we want to make sure that that there are people available to talk to. If you are needing immediate assistance, call or text 988. Our Suicide Crisis Lifeline. They're available 24/7, and there's somebody there that can actually talk with you right now if that's something that you're dealing with now.
Absolutely. I think a lot of our work too, Michelle, organizations like ours, is trying to get the conversation started. One thing we want to encourage everyone to do who's listening here today is to check us out on YouTube, Spark Collective. We upload our podcast to our various social media platforms, so Spark Collective. And on Spark Collective, we have music, we have messaging, we have our podcast, and very soon we're going to have Spark TV, where we're actually going to do some pre-recorded and live shows. Facebook, and Michelle just found out about this not too long ago. We started a group, and we're going to have some live conversations with our community on Facebook in May as we celebrate Mental Health Awareness Month. Michelle just found out about this
about an hour ago.
We also have Spark Radio. Michelle and I are really trying to lay down a foundation, because the battle that we are fighting in our communities really has no foundational support. We are trying to build a foundation with outreach, but also something that people that come after us can take up the leadership here. And Spark Radio is one of those ideas that we came up with, where we're going to play some various songs that are going to be family friendly, but we're going to hit you with messaging. We're going to hit you with 988. We're going to interweave messaging in there about suicide awareness, so you get good music and you also get good messaging. So we definitely want you to follow us on these various media platforms. We want you to share this video. We want the follows, we want the likes, because we have a massive battle. Organizations like us, it's a very uphill battle, so we need all the support we can get.
Absolutely.
All right. In closing, Michelle, we can give a teaser of our next episode. We won't name the individual, but maybe we can give a teaser as to what we're going to be talking about next time.
Yeah, we have a young lady that's going to be telling her story of substance abuse and her fight with depression and her suicide attempts, and how she has come out on the other side of that, and how she's now able to use her past experiences to help other people. She's got a really great story, and we're really excited to have her there.
And we're touching on yet another aspect of suicide and mental health and substance abuse with our next episode. Too often people see these as two separate issues, but definitely for what Michelle and I work with and our coalition works with, we're going to see in our next episode that there's a definite connection there. Any final words or thoughts from you, Michelle, as we conclude our second episode?
I just want to say that there is hope. Things can get better. And stories like James remind us that even in the darkest moments, change is possible.
I can't top that, so I won't try. Thank you for tuning in to our second episode, Faith in the Fight Within, with our guest, James McKenzie. We will be back in a couple of weeks with episode 3. We will be working to get this one out as soon as possible, so please share it and like it and subscribe to our social media. All right. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Hope, Help, and Healing. Today's conversation was a reminder that no matter how dark things may feel, recovery is possible, and you are not alone in your journey. If anything discussed today has brought up difficult feelings for you, please don't hesitate to reach out for support. You can call or text 988 to connect with the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at any time, day or night. You can also text HOME to 741-741 to reach the crisis text line. And remember, healing is not a straight line. It takes courage to keep going, and we are honored to walk alongside you through these conversations. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. Leave us a review, subscribe, and follow us on social media so you never miss an episode. You can stay connected to Spark through our Facebook page, Spark Cares, on YouTube at Spark Collective, and on X, TikTok, and Instagram. Please also listen to Spark Radio on live365.com. We will be back with episode 3. Take care of yourselves. If you or someone you know is struggling, please remember that help is available. Call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, free and confidential, available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Please note that 988 is not a substitute for emergency services. If you or someone else is in immediate danger, please call 911.